I'm Jaxolotl, and I'm going to tell you about how to play every 12-star map in the game, why they're 12 stars, and how you can get decent scores on them. So, I am ranked 541st in the world currently. I am by no means the best player on any of these maps. I wonder which one actually I have my best score on. 101 on Mission, 93 Chocolate Lily, 163 on Affiliate Requiem, 326, that's a horrible score. I need to improve that, and so on, all the way up the line. So, Ludicrous Speed is going to be our first map. Now, Ludicrous Speed is an older map, and even when it came out, it got a lot of backlash. This map is quite absurd, and not because of any of the other maps here. Not in the same way, that is. This is a very techie map, and it's a funky techie map. So as you can see, it has these spirals of notes. Now, reading these spirals of notes is obviously something I haven't gotten very good at either, but I think one of the things that's key here is you don't have to hit these perfectly sideways. You can hit them a little bit more diagonally, and that seemed to help for me a little bit. Other than that, it's kind of just a matter of memorizing the pattern and getting really good at just reading those sideways notes. I think also this map kind of sucks because it's a lot of luck. These patterns are what's known as a staircase, the spirals that I was playing earlier, and they're very conducive to bad cuts, and it's very hard not to bad cut them or train yourself not to bad cut them. So it's really just a matter of grinding and getting lucky. This probably isn't the map for you if you want to score well on it, but it's definitely a playable map, and it's quite fun if you don't treat it as something that you're trying to score on. Also, keep in mind these bits are not always the easiest, just because the patterns keep switching, and there are a lot of sliders, so if you're not good at acting sliders or inverts like this, you're going to have a bit of trouble. But here's the staircase I'm talking about again, and there's no way I won't bad cut some of these notes. Especially on the corners, it's incredibly difficult, especially on the way back. I think the way back is the actual staircase, where it's just like practically unhittable. Anyhow, that'll do it for Ludicrous Speed. Probably not your best bet, but it is the first 12, and I'm going to talk about all of them. So, second map here is Mission. Mission is probably the newest map here. I guess Ev Eternity is, and this was mapped out earlier, but Mission's quite fun, actually. And Mission's a little bit difficult, and I'll just start it because it's pretty short. But Mission has sort of hard parts all the way throughout. It's under 2 minutes, so obviously it's not something that you're going to be getting too enduranced on, but it's quite techy for its speed. As you can see, there's all of these pickles. There's all sorts of other notes like that. Now, that's quite a modern map, so the patterns are quite difficult to hit. Inverts are quite popular right now. If you want to train inverts, I would recommend probably one of the, what are they called? Those Schwank songs. Oh boy. But yeah, in order to play this map effectively, it's actually quite sight readable in all honesty, but it's also just a matter of knowing when the notes get really wide and inverted and how to hit those. This slider section is quite difficult actually. Just be ready for the pauses and just play a little bit more relaxed than you would expect. Anyway, that'll do it for Mission. As you can see, it's just a lot of good patterns, nothing really too surprising, but definitely a lot of inverts and things that you might not be ready for unless you're expecting inverts and good at inverts at high speeds with lots of swaps and doubles and things like that. That's really what makes Mission a 12. Alright, Chocolate Lily. This is a pretty bad map in all honesty. It might be the oldest of the 12s, and it's relatively obvious why. So I think this is one of the few maps nobody has a 96 on yet, and I'll show you why. Or I won't. So one of my problems currently is my offset. Definitely if you're not using JD Fixer, if you're playing this map, JD Fixer is an absolute must. So I'm currently set to reaction time. I just need to turn it off and jump down to like 19.96 probably. It's going to be fine. That 25 offset is not going to do it for you. So as you can see, the notes are coming at me slower, but the real problem with this map is all of these sliders and quarter note pauses, which are not something you can train very effectively. It's just a matter of not playing the map, really. It's not very good for getting good scores on. But hey, if you want to try it, go for it. Just be ready for a lot of sliders, quarter note pauses, and really bad old mapping. That'll about do it for that. So the next map along the line here is going to be Affiliate Requiem. Now, I believe this is actually currently my top play, which is a little bit embarrassing. But Affiliate Requiem, it's, in all honesty, primarily pretty bad patterns. Lots of bottom row up notes, quarter note pauses, and just kind of gross sliders. There's also this slider spam section, which is honestly not the most difficult part of the map. As you can see here, I'm pretty easily full comboing it. I just missed a couple notes, but as you can see, lots of quarter note pauses, notes in weird positions, poorly emphasized patterns. But this was a legendary map back in the day, and it deserves little respect now, but it's definitely a good one. And, or at least I think so. Everyone else would disagree with me. Just because of all these quarter note pauses and just pretty bad patterns. You see these notes that are going like that. Really just play a lot of old maps, or older ranked maps, and you should be able to get the hang of this one pretty quickly. At least I managed to. So, Ragnarok. People will tell you this is an old map. It's not. This map is relatively new. People will tell you this map has bad mapping. It does not. This is, I think, one of the greatest maps ever made. And I'll show you why. The problem is it's very long and very endurance-y, and the patterns are not going to be something you're used to if you haven't played a ton of tech streams. I think it's super fun. I haven't scored on it very well as a ranked map, but then again, who has? And I've whacked my controller against a chair. So, definitely failed that one. Ooh, let's hope I haven't ruined my controller forever. Oh, there we are. Cool. I'm just going to skip a little bit farther forward so you don't have to watch me play the same section again. And let's just quickly do a full reset of that one. Yep. Cool, we're back. So, Ragnarok, very fun map. Definitely want to start a tad bit earlier there. But it is definitely playable, more so than I'm making it seem right now. And definitely a map that is worth playing, even if it's not worth scoring on necessarily. So as you can see, lots and lots of tech streams. And get ready, because this section could really throw you off once you get really far up the map. Is these dots here are a little bit hard to hit. But really just get used to tech streams, get used to a little bit of endurance training, and get used to these sort of doubles here with the swaps in them. And you're just going to do great. I mean, this map is incredibly fun, as you can see. The notes are just coming at you from all angles, and it's just a great experience for a map. So that's Ragnarok. Get ready for all these tech streams with doubles in between, all sorts of just really fun patterns, and I'm just still playing it because it's so fun. But yeah, that's Ragnarok, endurance, tech, speed. It's really a pretty strong blend, which is why it's up here as a 12. Although it was originally a 10, which is quite amazing. I think this is probably the biggest leap that any map got in all of these reweights. So, Foxy's is also a 12. Okay, let's start with Foxy's. It's technically a 12.1, so it's a little bit lower. Actually, so is ABC's. But Foxy's 321 is not that hard of a map. I think probably the hardest part is it's somewhere in here. And the problem is it has quarter note pauses. And I keep talking about this, but it's when you have a pattern where your hand is hitting these notes right here, at this speed, and then all of a sudden it pauses for one quarter note. So it's not like a full reset. Here it is. Here's the section that I'm talking about. So if you look at my left hand, see how it's pausing all of a sudden, all the time here? It's really hard to read that. And I think probably the biggest key here is just to zone out and hit it. I think I have a decent score on this map. Yes, indeed I do. A 92.42. And I believe I actually managed. I only missed a couple of times. My AC isn't very good, but I can say that this map is definitely hittable, even though people say that it's not sometimes. And it is actually a lot more hittable than Ultra and Sin, which is a 12.4 for a reason. Now, Ultra and Sin has maybe better placed notes, so you don't feel the quarter note pauses as badly. But it has a lot more sliders and just sort of a lot more visual chaos happening on your screen. So as you can see here, this is the same section, and it's definitely a little bit more playable, but that does not mean it's more hittable or more hackable. I would actually probably recommend, if you're a newer player and you're not really playing 12s, starting with this difficulty. Even though it's harder to score on, it's probably a little bit easier to play. And if you're wanting to get into older 12s, which is what this is, it's definitely a good entry to older maps in general, if you're willing to fail a whole lot. In terms of scoring, it's quite difficult, but you can definitely get the hang of it as well. Just be prepared for like these sections to have a pretty fast warm-up back out of them. So right, you're like just relaxing, and then all of a sudden, you're gonna get some of that. And you just have to be ready for that, and you'll do pretty well. So that is Reno 0 on both difficulties. Definitely both quite playable. This one's gonna have more polyrhythm, more sliders, and Foxy's is gonna be more clean doubles and jumps. But Foxy does have some quarter note pauses that are gonna be a little bit more difficult to read. So Ev Eternity is a map that I'm kind of obsessed with right now. To give you a sense of the difficulty here, it is a new map, but an 82.86 is 80th in the world, which is absurd. ABCs, I'll start with. It's a little bit easier. And so ABCs is actually a pretty generic speed map here. I think both of these, probably the Burn Hotter section is the hardest part. They both have sort of a repeating section and then this Burn Hotter section. And so I'm just going to play the Burn Hotter section of each of them to show you sort of the differences. This map definitely a little bit more streamlined, I'll say. A little bit less techy, right? You have these straight stuff. A couple of swaps in there, you know, it's an ABC map. And there's obviously all of these techie patterns at this high speed, because it is a 12 after all, and a modern one at that. But it's all pretty hittable and playable. We'll miss some notes here and there. But if you're used to sort of modern, faster maps, I think ABC's difficulty is quite playable. It's primarily supinated rather than pronated. Pronation is a lot less common in modern maps. And then sort of the recurring section here on ABCs is this part coming up. And it's honestly pretty streamlined. You definitely have sort of the polyrhythm with one hand bouncing around a lot and the other hand just going up and down. It's sort of a slightly more varied take on your classic sort of up and down polyrhythm map. And then this part is going to have some inverts. It's going to have these like deep, deep, right? Now, Complex's difficulty is actually a lot slower here, which I'll show you in a second. But that definitely does not make it easier. In fact, I think this difficulty is easier in that section. Complex's difficulty has actually a lot fewer notes. However, Complex's difficulty is going to be a lot harder. I accidentally just hit those notes I wasn't trying to hit. I'm trying to lose here. There we go. Okay. And Complex's difficulty is just, it's a lot harder because it's a lot techier. Even though, as you can see here, 9.23 notes per second, as opposed to 9.41. So Complex's difficulty, I'll start at the same place. I will do my very best not to lose. This map is utterly absurd. And a bit of an obsession of mine at this point. So as you can see, already a lot taggier. You know, pickles, all sorts of funky things. And it's going to say Burn Hotter. And here you're going to have pronation, sliders, just all sorts of patterns that you're just not used to seeing at this speed, or really in maps at all. I think of it as a lot faster version of Complex's Venomous Firefly map. And as you can see here, you have all sorts of funky spiral patterns, wacky supination, just really something you would expect in a map about 100 BPM slower at this speed, which makes it incredibly difficult to play. I would recommend playing a lot of tech and a lot of speed, and then this is just a combination of both of those skills. But even so, it's not something that you should expect to be able to play anytime soon. So this is the main pattern. This occurs twice, and it contains a lot of leans, as you can see here. You know, a little bit of leaning. I don't really lean for leans, but you know what I mean. I play it quite high with my hands. And then this is that part that in the ABC map is quite fast. In this map, it's just techie, lots of supination and pronation, and actually quite hard to read for your first sight read. So that's this map. Honestly, I think this map is nearly the hardest ranked map. I mean, it's rated as nearly the hardest ranked map. It's a 12.4. There's 2 maps above it. They're also 12.4s. I think this could be a 12.5, and no one would complain. Nobody even has a 96 on it yet, but we will just see. So, our last 2 maps here, I don't actually enjoy them very much. They are when I use it of Sacrament. When I use it is just incredibly fast, incredibly long, endurance, speed. I'll just show you the ending here. And it's just note spam. I mean, it's barf. It's up and down. It's nothing that you can't hit. It's just something that it's not techy at all, right? I like tech. It is a little more varied than obviously like an 11 would be, because it is a 12. But I think it gets by for most of its difficulty with just sustaining this incredibly fast pattern for quite a bit too long in my mind. That's when I use it. It's literally just that. Actually, I say it's literally just that, but honestly, I don't think the intro is that playable either. And not unplayable in like the map's really hard, but I think more unplayable in the sense that it's just not fun or good mapping. Granted, it's an older map, but I really think it's just the fault of Estrella. Like, look at how many times I'm missing here in just the break section. Maybe I'm just bad. Arguably, I'm just bad. But these windows are not proper emphasis in my mind. And I might be wrong, but it's so hard to hit. And like, I mean, this isn't creative mapping. It's just sort of, I don't think it's very fun. If you're really good at speed maps and you want to see one higher up here, which honestly I kind of am, maybe you'll like it. I just don't think it's an enjoyable map to play, and that also could be that it's a questionable genre of music, at the very least. But that's that. Oh, now, the hardest map of all time, of Sacrament. Now, Sacrament is an older map, so prepare for, lose my voice here, all of the older map faults, quarter note pauses, sliders, just strange note placement, which I will show you here. So the hardest part of this map is, in fact, this section that starts around here. And the difficulty, which you'll see in a second, or a little bit faster than a second, I guess, there, is not something that arises from, like, I think, good mapping. It's just an artifact of the map being not incredibly well mapped. Which, as you can see here, it is definitely, obviously, fast, endurance-y. It's the hardest ranked map. I just don't think it's a very good map, personally. This section will drain your endurance fairly quickly, and if you haven't trained endurance, you're gonna probably fall apart right around here. If you can make it past this section, there's another section that comes up a little bit later, and I'll play there just to show you. But it's not really, I mean, if you look at all these bits here, this is obviously the break section, but I mean, they're mapping all of the sounds, but the problem is the sounds have these quarter note pauses in them. And when you have that, you have the same problem that you have on Foxy's Zornial Zero map. It just becomes a little bit unpleasant to play. And you can train yourself to be able to read them, but that doesn't make it pleasant. So this is not the fast section I was talking about. This section is quite fast, but it's also not very sustained, which makes your endurance sort of keep up, unlike this next section, where that is not at all the case. It's also more varied. So that's this. And I might lose here, just because it becomes quite varied at the end here. Yeah. And because I have run out of endurance. I still believe that the earlier part is a little bit harder, but it's definitely not a cakewalk of a map either. So I hope that helps you with all of the 12s, and yeah.